What's going on, guys? It is Sheemerge here, and today we are back with another video. However, not another news video, but a theory video. We've all played the brand new game Hello Neighbor 2, and as of right now, nobody really has any clue on who the guest is. Well, I believe I have found out. With a decent amount of evidence, I will be giving you guys my theory on the whole entire situation. If you enjoy, please make sure to like and subscribe. To show how much I want you to subscribe, here's every green screen subscribe button I can find online. Anyway, share it with your friends, and while you're at it, join the Discord. I just launched it in the description. You guys get to see before I make a video and updates on it and stuff like that. Anyway, let's get right into the video. Hello Neighbor 2 is the long-awaited sequel to the immensely popular and, well, some might say infamous game Hello Neighbor.
I'll give you a lawnmower back. Oh, what the fuck? Oh shit! Oh shit!
So it's like we just came out of Blight Town and we're back in Firelink Shrine. What?
After years of development and multiple prototypes, we find ourselves with the alpha for Hello Neighbor 2, which will be fully released in 2021. The game involves a player named Quentin searching into the original house from the full Hello Neighbor game to break into the attic to find the neighbor, who has been locked up by this crow figure named the Guest by fans due to the name he was featured in called Hello Guest. Once you finally beat the game, you are greeted with a costume of the Guest, and when trying to leave the attic, after grabbing it, the game ends, and the alpha pretty much stops there. Alright, so the theory overall that we are uncovering is who the Guest is and also who Quentin is. So we are simply going to start off by figuring out perhaps why Quentin has gotten here. As we see in the intro, Quentin has arrived at this house known as the Act 1 house with a neighbor missing poster as he sees the Guest lock up the attic. Now, why would Quentin come? Well, he clearly cares about the neighbor because he knows about the neighbor's location and drove all the way to the original Act 1 house to check where he is. However, what if I told you maybe the neighbor has planned this outcome and did it all on purpose? The neighbor is a psycho, and with no doubts anybody living with him probably knows about his ways, including, well, his son? Perhaps Aaron, the neighbor's son, decided to run off, because who would want to stay with someone as crazy as the neighbor? The neighbor surely scarred him and over time just completely destroyed his childhood, so he probably wanted to get out, angering the neighbor, causing him to perhaps want to capture him. After all, he is a psychopath. What Quentin did to avoid the neighbor finding him was change his identity. And you can tell by the similar hair colors and face shape to the neighbor. The only way to combat this is the swirl chin the son has. And Quentin does have that, actually. Just for some reason, Hello Neighbor 2, they don't show it on his model. And I don't believe they show it on the neighbor either. Anyway, the neighbor's son changed his identity from Aaron to Quentin, hiding his persona from the neighbor, making it impossible to be found. But the neighbor knew this, as he couldn't dare search the whole planet for his son. But what if there was a way to make it easier and practical and get his son over to him? Quentin may be scared of the neighbor, but the neighbor is still his dad. So let's say the neighbor goes missing. Quentin would then search for the neighbor and figure out what happened. But where would he search out of all places first? The place that Quentin grew up, and where he knew the neighbor the most. The Act 1 house. Since the neighbor was on the search for Quentin, and that he was crazy, he made this plan to make this part of the game that we play in, where Quentin comes into the house on search for the missing neighbor to the house he knew best, all of which being part of the neighbor's work to lure him in there and get him inside, which is why the Guest ends up locking up the attic after trapping the neighbor. So that way Quentin will go inside and be lured exactly where the neighbor wants him, inside of the house. Once you beat the game and get into the attic, you see a Guest outfit and look outside to see the neighbor pulled up. Well, the neighbor's waiting. He was waiting for you. The Guest staged locking him up without being there, and once the Guest has him in the house and in the attic, the neighbor pulls up into the car that we can prove wasn't there before, because it then shows up in the menu after beating the game, to inevitably capture Quentin when he tries to leave the attic where the game ends. What happened after the game is pretty much probably the Guest will trap Quentin, or the neighbor will, from leaving the attic to capture him with the neighbor in the car. However, who is the Guest? Why do we see two costumes? Well, the Guest can be seen all the way in Hello Neighbor Alpha 1, believe it or not. The man in the now extinct paintings who is right next to the neighbor. The man is who helps organize this plan with the neighbor in order to capture Quentin. and wears his costume to seem like somebody that Quentin didn't recognize. That's what we're supposed to realize in the attic, that the suits are just suits and that somebody is behind them. And there's a second one because the man and the neighbor are two separate people. And well, if you look at this painting, people of perhaps two different sizes. They both work together on this one deal by having one disguised and the other fake missing. But they've been doing this more outside of Quentin, as they have another suit to perhaps use against more people, where they are both guests, or in the case that the neighbor's friend needs help, and the neighbor needs to dress up. Perhaps that could even be why we see the neighbor burning his costume in some concept art. Perhaps even he ends up regretting his decision to capture Quentin, and after the situation decides to be done with the costumes, and burn them where no more harm can be done. Now, let's do a little bit of a quick recap of the whole situation. So, all we really know right now to answer this is that Quentin must be Aaron. Everyone thought that the guest was Aaron, but I'm pretty sure that Quentin, if you look at the faces, you can see the similarities, you can see the resemblance, you can see why he would be down at this house, because he doesn't just walk over here for no reason. He obviously had to have a purpose to be searching for the neighbor, and what better connection than to be, well, related to him. So that kind of makes sense, and that's why the neighbor ends up pulling up in the car. He was not part of this. The guest was the one who organized it, and the neighbor was waiting to come and capture him. The neighbor couldn't have been there because if the son knew where his neighbor was, he would have found him and then realized what was happening. So the guest had to disguise himself in order to trick Quentin into thinking that, well, the neighbor was lost and that the guest was the one who ended up trapping him. So that's why Quentin was like, okay, I gotta get into the attic, I gotta do all of this. And then once he finally gets into the attic, where the only exit is the attic door, you look outside and see the neighbor. He was waiting. He pulled up into the car. And like I said, if you look at the menu, you can see that the car is finally pulled up. So what was happening was the neighbor was waiting. Maybe the guest called him or something and was just like, hey, we got him. And the neighbor was going to pull up and shut the doors on him to inevitably finally capture his son, who has been lost for a long, long time. Now, to be honest, I have no clue what happens to Beatrix, because Beatrix doesn't really have a place in this story. However, she did in Hello Guest. However, I feel like Quentin's definitely the main character of this story. After all, if you look at the Hello Guest animations, they're much more intricate and much more just in detail with Quentin. And in this game, we can only play as Quentin. So overall, it really kind of seems like that Quentin is supposed to be the main character of this story. I'm not saying that we won't be able to play with Beatrix in the future. After all, in my most recent video, I explained the fact that Beatrix does exist in the game. But I 100% feel like that they are putting emphasis on Quentin. And that emphasis, in my opinion, must be that he's the son. Maybe that also has something to do with why Quentin has this weird helmet on his head or whatever. Perhaps he's just trying to cover his hair because probably would have grown to have a similar haircut to the neighbor. Now, obviously, of course, you also have to remember that Quentin is a lot younger. He looks like he's probably 20, and the neighbor looks like he's a little bit older. So he doesn't quite have just the receding hair of the neighbor. And also, he doesn't really have as sexy as a mustache. However, he is definitely kind of, in my opinion, related. I'm not sure. You guys should tell me in the comments below what you guys think about this theory. If you enjoyed, please make sure to like and subscribe. There is one major loophole in the story, which is the fact that whenever you watch the guest lock him up, you can actually see him in the attic, and there's no other way for him to really escape. So I honestly don't really know how to explain that, besides the fact that maybe he left, or maybe there was no one in there at the whole time, and they just kind of put that there as some sort of placeholder to show you that he was in there. And it was just more or less out of the perception of Quentin. I'm not sure. However, like I said, let me know what you guys think. Is this a good theory? Is this a terrible theory? Is there one thing in the book that just kind of disproves all of this? I didn't read the books. Anyway, guys, as always, I will see you in the next video. Peace out.